Does that explain why, one of the feedback that I hear is around when you're trying to create maybe more autonomous labs is, hey, we got all of these data islands, all of these systems are really like locked up, proprietary, hard to program. They use these different programming languages. They're almost built not to be interoperable, it seems like. And part of me in the back of my mind is like, like maybe that's part of the business model, right? Is like, because it's hard to make a buck, you really want to lock folks into your ecosystem so that you can, make up for all of the R&D costs and the hardware costs that were required to just deliver the product in the first place. So do you see a strong linkage between kind of the openness of these systems and the business model, or no?
Can vary from hardware to hardware, from company to company, and whatever the philosophy that they have. There are companies who are trying to make it easier, trying to make it more open. They launch with robust APIs or a Python interface or REST server or something like that. And so I feel personally, in my experience over the last 5 years, 8 years, is that I'm starting to see more and more of the complete solution eventually arising. So you have the hardware, and it's like we just need the hardware out, and then we're gonna release the APIs later, and then they eventually come. And I'm seeing a lot of that more, which is fantastic. But there's a gap, right? You need a return. Maybe you have a deadline, some business model, some calculation made that you need to start selling these units to then fund the next wave of development work. And so that happens actually quite a lot more now. And so I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know how much of it, and so in that regard, yes, you want some sort of horizontal, some sort of vertical, and maybe it's a consumable, maybe it's a license for a software that accompanies it. It really just depends on kind of how that company's doing, and whether if you're trying to break into the market more, you may lean more towards, we're just going to give you complete access to this hardware because we want you to just take a chance on us. Where if you're a more established player and you have sort of business critical, secure, federal government level contracts, then you need to really kind of focus on security and other things. So that's a much tougher and different ask. Yeah, it can vary.
Okay, I hadn't thought about that security connection, which is when you make things more open. I guess not necessarily, right? I think maybe one of the claims of open source is, hey, if you can see the code, then you can see where the bugs are, right? And potentially find those ahead of time. But I guess there's a balance, because maybe before other people find them, somebody like an adversary might be able to exploit them.
I also want to just chime in and say that there's there's the business model and the calculation that each business makes, and that can be just unique to them, and that's it. And then there's the other answer, which is if there's hardware and if there's software, it can be hacked. And so you can we can hack it. So
we can find ways around this.
So one of the biggest shout out to PyLab Robot, but they basically were able to build around other libraries that were able to do things and talk to existing hardware and software, and other people have also been doing the same, and people have been doing that for forever, pretty much, with across all industries, where it's like, this isn't giving us the functionality that we want, so let's just look at the firmware and see what it's doing, see what it's saying. Maybe we can kind of upload our own or something. So these aren't new things. I think that they're just slowly making their way now to lab automation. I think a part of that's just because now we have a wider set of eyes and brains, looking at us and saying, that's really cool, maybe that's what I want to do. And so now you're attracting kind of new talent pools, which is really interesting.
Okay. Well, talk about creative problem solving. So so if you like to hack things, right, and pull things apart and see how they're working, it sounds like that skill set is really rewarded in this field, because sometimes you want machines to do things that they're not able to do right out of the box.
Yeah, but if you're a vendor, think about that, and launching with a pretty robust API will prevent some of that work, because I think the other part of it too is a lot of the hardware that you get goes through a validation process, and it's secure and safe for a narrow scope of possibilities. So if you talk to the firmware, you can really break some things. So a lot of the reasons people talk to the firmware is because they would just want more functionality out of their instrument than what's provided. They want to integrate it into something else. So I think it's like, if as vendors provide better APIs and better interfaces, you might see less of this, or until then it'll be more, hacking and also part of it is, if you have legacy equipment that you can buy for relatively cheap, why not just hack it? And then suddenly it's like brand new again. So, yeah.